We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, for a special edition of The War Room. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. We are reviewing AEW Dynamite on a Saturday. Also, NXT Takeover 30. Now, I understand our title. Some people are like, how can you compare the two shows? I understand. They are definitely two completely different shows. One is a TV show. One is a pay-per-view, but we're going to do the best we can to try to compare the two, which was good, what was bad. And of course, after each review, we will take your questions. So make sure you use the hashtag question in the chat so I could see it. And of course, you can also donate to the Super Chat Party. Any donation amount could cut you through the line, and we'll get your question asked immediately. So Ralph, we'll start with AEW Dynamite. And the first match of the evening is FTR versus Private Party. Private Party had a pretty solid match now that they slowed things down a little bit. But I think some stuff to talk about here. One, Tully Blanchard is managing them, and that is now official. And we saw some stuff afterwards where Hangman Page was talking to FTR. And it looks like we're finally getting the reveal of this Four Horsemen AEW version. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, I definitely think that we're getting closer to some type of faction with Tully Blanchard probably being the manager of this group. I think that FTR is certainly going to be involved in this. And I think that we'll kind of see that develop over the course of the next couple of weeks leading into All Out, where maybe we do get the actual reveal of this. So that you know, we'll see what happens with that whole storyline, but I think that's pretty much inevitable. I think that's something that is going to happen. I don't think they're going to necessarily call it the Four Horsemen, but no, it'll be called something. As for the match itself, I liked the fact that this was slowed down a little bit, kind of picked and choosed its spots, especially for Private Party there. They did point out that they've been working with Matt Hardy, so I don't know if that's something that's just part of the storyline or if he's actually kind of training them and tutoring them and kind of teaching them traditional tag team match.
Yeah,
how
I think
to work
they are.
it. And it definitely showed. This to me was, I wouldn't say it was Private Party's best match, but it was certainly like, it seems like they're trying to work towards becoming a little more concrete and solid in the ring. So it's not as spotty and doesn't seem as choreographed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you're working with a tag team like FTR, you're kind of forced to work a tag match in the traditional sense. So I see that. And as far as the name of this faction, I've seen a lot of people in our Four Horsemen video that we had a while ago mention the Apocalypse, as obviously the Four Horsemen is about, a correlation with that. Also, why not Fear the Revelation, as Tully Blanchard said in that backstage segment. So either way, I think either one is good. So, something else that we got to talk about, possible faction here, is that Eddie Kingston could be starting a faction with the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade, Ralph, after their tag team match, their 8-man tag really, against the Natural Nightmares and the Jurassic Express. Now, the match itself was okay, but again, Butcher and Blade lose. And Eddie Kingston comes out and he's like, guys, why are you guys losing? You're the best tag teams in the world. This should not be happening. I like that. And I also like at the end where Eddie Kingston winked at the camera. So while it looks like he's out there for their best intentions, he has something up his sleeve.
Certainly. Good to see Eddie back. He cuts a great promo. I'm excited to see him in this role. And thank God Eddie came out wearing rosary beads, because my God, he was the only one, and Jesus were the only people that were going to save that train wreck of a match. That was all over the fucking place. Not for me. Way too much going on. But Eddie came out. He cut a great promo. I'm interested in seeing what they do with that faction. And I'm just glad to see him back, because I think that coming off that match with Cody, there was a lot of talk about get Eddie signed. He's back. Is he going to wrestle? I don't know, but you know what? As long as he's on the mic, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. As long as he's on the mic, he's fire, and he cut another good promo. And, I'm interested to see where this goes, because the Lucha Brothers, we all know, are one of the best luchadors in the world, if not the best luchadors in the world.
Yeah.
Butcher and Blade have been poorly booked since they've started in AEW. And they're just one of those tag teams. I just hoped and wished that they could just get booked better. And out of all the tag teams out there, the Natural Nightmares are ranked 4th. And that surprises me. How are they ranked 4th? And they got this gauntlet match next week, which is going to be kind of cool. So the 4th faces the 3rd, which starts off with the Natural Nightmares and the Young Bucks. Then the number 2 team, which is the Best Friends, faces the winner. And then the winner of that faces FTR. So that's an easy way to kill an hour of content with tag team wrestling that they always love to do, Ralph.
Well, they certainly love to do the tag team wrestling. I think just about every match on the show was a tag team match of some sort, whether it was a straight up tag match or a 4-man tag, whatever the case was, right? I don't think last night
other than the main
event, everything was a tag match. So
yes,
I get that they're trying to dedicate a lot of time to tag teams, and that's always been something that they wanted to be a focal point of the company. And they have a lot of good tag teams. So the gauntlet match should be interesting. Wonder if people are going to tune out and say, there's just too much tag matches, but
as long as they're good, I don't think anybody has a problem with too many tag matches. The issue is just, are they going to follow rules, or is it going to be train wreck stuff? I'm interested to see, because you have 4 completely different teams here with the Natural Nightmares that are kind of a hodgepodge team. You have the Young Bucks that are the car crash style. You have the Best Friends that kind of are a hybrid of traditional and car wreck. And then you have FTR, which is just 100% traditional 80s tag team wrestling. So I don't know where they go with that. Oh, and also Darby and Hobbs. That was also not a tag match. Right. So Thank you, Adrian, for your mention there on the chat.
By the way, one of the notes I had for that match, Hobbs, good spine buster.
Yeah.
Very good spine buster.
Yep. So hopefully that guy, gets some more shine on television. But, we talk about promos, Ralph, and before that 8-man tag, we had the Moxley and MJF promo. So we have to talk about this. So the winner, for the AEW Championship, we're going to have a contract signing next week. And they're trying to get the Paradigm Shift banned from the match, which I love. And I loved the overselling of MJF coming into tears. Everything looked good. His advisor or his lawyer or whoever that guy was, a little nerdy. Very nerdy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, can we get a little love? Because I said he was going to come out with a neck brace last week. Did I not say that?
You did call it, Ralph.
I saw that from a mile away.
Yes.
I like the 2 promos. I think that MJF continues to do this presidential type thing where, it works for him. He's an arrogant guy. He's got this team around him now. So we'll continue to do these things. I imagine it will be revealed during their match at All Out that he doesn't actually have a neck injury. He's just kind of trying to work over the fact that they're trying to get that move banned.
Yeah.
Moxley's promo was good. It kind of makes me feel like they're trying to lead you to believe that MJF is not going to win this match, that they're not quite ready to put the title on him, because as Moxley points out, he's like, look, I've been down this road. I'm not going to be here for the next 25 years. You will be. And that's MJF's goal. He wants to be the leader of AEW, or the head of the industry, for the next 25 years, which is great. I think a lot of people would want to see that. But I think that they're trying to let the people know that, and this is what Moxley said about him, you're not ready. Like, you're going to get in there with an experienced guy, you're up and coming, and that's great, but you're not at my level yet.
Right.
So that makes the match a little more intriguing for that sense, because you're going to get the veteran, the rugged guy in Moxley versus the young up and comer. And we'll see if MJF is ready for that spot, if they're ready to give him the title, or if they keep the belt on Moxley and give it to somebody else.
Right. Now, of course, we got some people just rolling in here on the live episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble, a special edition of the War Room. I'd like to thank everybody for coming in. And of course, if you have a question, you can submit it in the chat using the hashtag question, followed by your question. That way I could see it better in the chat. But also you could skip the line by donating to the Super Chat Party, any dollar amount to help support the channel. We thank you guys. The more that we do these live stuff and the more you guys support us, we're going to be doing these a lot more in any way, shape, or form. But let's talk about, I know a lot of people came here that are fans of the podcast and the channel. They're waiting for this, Ralph. The Mimosa Mayhem match is announced for All Out. Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy. So we have, what was it, 1,000 bottles of a little bit of the bubbly and 50 gallons of orange juice. And the only way to win is by throwing your opponent into this giant bowl of mimosa or pinfall or submission. I wanted to see I wanted to see an interview of Orange Cassidy, damn it. I wanted to see an interview and I didn't get it. False advertising, AEW.
He only cuts promos when he cares. Isn't that what they said? I guess he doesn't care.
He didn't get a chance to care. He didn't get a chance to care because, Jericho cut him off.
Listen, I'm just glad that we're getting sports-based wrestling here in AEW like we were promised. If you watch an NFL game on any Sunday, you're going to see the NFL players swimming in a bowl of mimosa. So that's why we're getting this sports-based approach with this.
I mean, we did get sports during the 6:00 hour of AEW Dynamite.
Yeah, a half hour too long of sports. It interrupted Dynamite, so I was not interested in any of the finals or NBA is in the playoffs, correct? That just shows you how much basketball I actually watch.
I haven't watched basketball since Patrick Ewing got traded to the Supersonics, literally. So that was.
So anyway, back to the Mimosa Mayhem, if that's what they're calling. I believe that's what they're calling
Mimosa Mayhem, yes.
Okay, so I guess we should believe that Vince Russo has been hired because now we have a obscure type of gimmick match that we're used to seeing in the likes of TNA back in the day because they had a million type of gimmick matches here.
Yep.
The thing that bothers me most about this, and it has nothing to do with Orange Cassidy, surprising, I'm sure, to most people that follow us, because we all know I'm just a huge fan of Orange Cassidy here.
Yes.
What is this going to do for Orange Cassidy, and what is this going to do for Chris Jericho? Probably nothing, because this is a comic match, okay? And this is what I've been saying. AEW needs to decide what direction they're going to go with Orange Cassidy. Is he supposed to be a comedic relief guy? I mean, you just had him go over Chris Jericho is literally one of the best wrestlers of all time. So you assume that means they're telling the audience, this is a guy you should care about. Now, how do they follow that up? They put him in this comedy type match. I mean, let's be honest. The way you win the match is throwing somebody into a vat of mimosa. So Chris Jericho, who was the first AEW champion, or Orange Cassidy, who is the guy that you're supposed to really care about, is going to be swimming in orange juice and champagne at the end of the match. I mean, these are the two guys. How are you? That's something that's for like mid card, like slop, like Pigpen, Henry Godwin type stuff.
Right.
I'm not into it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Some people are like that. Some people like it. People don't like the term sports entertainment when it comes to wrestling, but we all have to admit it is sports entertainment. And this is just the entertainment part of it. And especially when it comes to American wrestling, you're going to need some entertainment parts for people that aren't really into the sports base to get involved so that they can follow the sports base, if that makes any sense.
So let's just make it clear. If you're going to criticize WWE for doing these silly type of gimmick matches and all of the silliness, you have to be at least equal on the same playing field here with AEW when they do these silly things.
Right. Well, it's true, but all right, we did get a $5 donation on the Super Chat party. Thank you, Kadrian Webb, big fan of the podcast. Thank you very much. I actually was going to touch on this later on, but because he already super chatted it in, we're going to ask it now. Which title change was the most shocking? Brodie, Karrion Kross, or Damian Priest? Brodie. Without a doubt, it's Brodie Lee. Not only like the fact that he won, but how he won was surprising. So Cody's having all these 20-minute matches with the likes of Sonny Kiss and Warhorse and Jungle Boy. And he gets squashed by Brodie Lee in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Do you want to just talk about that now since the topic has already come up?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is one of those things I'm going to wait and see on. With the Dark Order, it's tough to take them serious because of how they were positioned when they first came into AEW and knowing like the whole history of it. But I think that they are certainly trying to establish them. I mean, how could they not be going all in on the Dark Order right now, especially considering he goes out there and he squashes Cody in 5 minutes the way he did it.
Right.
So, I would have liked to seen a younger up-and-comer take the title off Cody. I've been saying that for a long time now, especially because he has gone out there and really kind of established that title to mean something.
Yep.
And, again, it's like you're putting a title on another former WWE guy. I think in this case, they're doing it because obviously they want you to take the Dark Order seriously. And he did cut a fairly good promo afterwards. That was just kind of like, look, it's executives like you that look down on me, probably referring to Vince McMahon without saying Vince McMahon.
Right.
So I'll wait and see. I don't want to crap on this and say it was terrible. I was certainly surprised. I also don't like the fact that this is 2 weeks out from All Out, which is strange.
That's definitely the strange part. Like, you have All Out in 2 weeks. So who becomes the number one contender? Like, how are you going to build this up?
Yeah.
Are you just going to have a random match where like Lance Archer faces Brodie Lee? Because I think he's the only one like not tied up to something in the top 5. And Lance Archer, they've been putting him in like backstage segments, but they haven't put him in a match since Joey Janela.
So that is all true. Here's a follow-up question that somebody just wrote.
Go ahead.
Cody jobbed, but even more looked like a jobber. Will the haters still compare him to Triple H? Because I don't ever remember Triple H jobbing for anybody during his main event status and hashtag question. Do you want to get into this? Because I know that we've talked about this probably on the show a few times. Triple H puts guys over. Okay, I know there's certainly times where people have said, oh, he's buried people. And I mean, you can probably say he has done that, but there's been a long list of individuals, especially most recently, that he has put over. Daniel Bryan probably would have never gotten to the level of stardom with the Yes Movement had Triple H not been involved in that and put him over.
Right.
So I think he holds a record for most losses at WrestleMania.
He does. So, and I think second to that is his best buddy, Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels. I'll have to double check, but I know Shawn has lost a lot of WrestleMania matches despite being called Mr. WrestleMania.
Yeah, and you also got to remember the time that I think a lot of people are referring to when he wasn't putting guys over was during the time where you had John Cena, you had Triple H, and then you had a lot of guys that people thought could have been the guy, and they never really got to that level, whether it was in WWE or outside. Like Mr. Anderson, a lot of people thought he was going to be the guy.
Right.
Jeff Hardy.
Right.
Actually, Triple H put Jeff Hardy over. Yeah. Jeff Hardy beat Triple H for the title.
Right.
MVP is doing great right now. I mean, he maybe could have been a guy that could have been a big star then, but
MVP is one of those guys where now, because of this run, I think a lot of people will start to appreciate what he did back in the day. Because like back in the day, it was like, oh, MVP's like nothing. Like people liked him, but to a mainstream audience probably didn't really connect. But today, his run with the Hurt Business is one of the best things on Raw. But we're kind of deviating from what we're talking about here, AEW and NXT. But we did get a $5 donation to the Super Chat Party from Harold Romero, another big fan of the podcast. Thank you, Harold. He said, as much as I love Cody, I'm glad Mr. Brodie won clean, quick, because Moxley barely beat him after finishers outside. Cody was so beat up. Here's the thing that another common perception with professional wrestling and fans today. A guy loses. Oh, he's buried. Brodie Lee's buried because he lost to Moxley. Lance Archer's buried because of Cody. Damian Priest is buried because he lost to Finn Balor.
AJ's buried because he was literally buried by The Undertaker.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of shame in losing to The Undertaker.
Right. One loss. I hope last night proved to people. One loss does not mean you're buried. Brodie Lee, his only loss is against Moxley, and he just dominated the TNT champion. Dominated.
Yep.
No offense whatsoever. And that was a point made by JR in that commentary. So let us all remember, one loss does not mean you are buried. Stop throwing that word around. It is one of the most misused freaking words in professional wrestling.
The second TNT champion, Colonel Sanders. Sounds good.
Yep. Extra crispy or original recipe, Ralph?
Extra crispy.
Speaking of the Dark Order, Thing 1, Thing 2, and Thing 3, or whatever we're calling them. They
4, 5, and 6. It's like they're introducing a fucking math algorithm every time they come out.
Yep. Well, they face the Elite, and it looks like we're still getting this slow burn of Kenny Omega's heel turn with I guess he attacked Alan Angels with a chair after the match. So people are saying, oh, this is still the slow burn of Kenny Omega's heel turn. I mean, the match itself, it is what it is. It was an okay match. I couldn't really get into it, Ralph. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, same thing. It was obviously a longer match, especially considering, you have the Elite, 3 of the best guys in AEW versus essentially the henchmen, like the subpar level of the, not even like the B level,
right?
Like the bottom tier.
Yep.
So it was a long match. It was really competitive. I think that the Elite should have used this as an opportunity to, just go over these guys really quick, really impressively.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen. Hopefully this title run with Brodie Lee does more for the Dark Order than anything that we've seen before, because again, they've been trading wins and losses here and there, and it's just hard to take them seriously.
Yeah.
At least I find it hard to take them seriously.
Well, I mean, hopefully, things get better for them as this progresses. But shall we talk about the biggest news out of AEW Dynamite last night, other than Brodie Lee winning?
I don't remember seing Anna Jay.
No, she was.
Oh, she was there at the end.
She was there at the end. But the big news, Ralph.
Brandy's toy is number 1.
Well, that too.
Okay, hit me with it. What is it?
We're getting a dream match at All Out, Ralph. Thunder Rosa versus Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's Championship. You've asked for it. You are getting it. Here's the question. Are AEW and NWA, do they have the partnership? I think this is all but confirmed. There's something going on.
Well, isn't Eddie still under contract too?
No, I don't think so. At least we don't know. Like Ricky Starks said he was a free agent before he signed with AEW. Yeah. Eddie Kingston, I thought, was with NWA before he showed up and then got his contract. So either AEW is giving them short-term deals until NWA comes back, or we're going to see some kind of NWA AEW partnership here. And it starts with this match between Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida, which I think will be a great match at All Out.
Yeah, and it will certainly quiet some of the critics, especially because one of the things that people have been most critical about is the booking of the women's division in AEW. So this is a really good rebound and pivot from that to say, look, you guys wanted this. We were able to work it out. You guys are going to get it. You would never see something like this happen in WWE because they're not going to partner with other companies and have some of their champions come in. And, that was something that Jericho pitched, I think, when he was in Japan. Mm-hmm. He wanted to come in, face Rollins for the Intercontinental Championship, and there was no interest in doing it.
Right.
I think we haven't really seen something like to that level in WWE. It went going back when like ECW was invading and all of that. And I'm talking about legit ECW, not the Alliance WCW version of it.
Right.
So, this is going to be very cool. Definitely something that is going to get talked about by the wrestling community. I think it's good for both companies, really.
Yeah.
AEW, because like I said, people have been critical of the fact that of the booking for the women's division. So yeah, I'm into it.
I am too. I cannot wait for this match. I think, like you said, the women's division definitely needed something, as they're talked about all the time negatively. And the other good thing about this was, I think a lot of people assumed that the Nightmare Sisters were going to win this tag team tournament. Ended up not happening. We got Ivelisse and Diamante. Hopefully they become big parts of the women's division. So I think last night helped the women's division in a great, great deal. So, I mean, for the 2 hours that we did get, after a 30-minute delay, thanks to the Miami Heat and Indiana Pacers, what'd you think of the 2 hours of Dynamite last night? I think there was a lot of good story progression, Ralph. I think some of the in-ring stuff was good, but I think the storytelling really overshadowed everything with this episode of Dynamite, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the storytelling part of it was the important thing that they wanted you to come away from the show. Sometimes the matches themselves are going to be really good, and that's the thing that gets people talking. But then there's obviously going to be certain instances where the segment or the promo or the thing that you want people to talk about is what is like the lasting impression. So last night, coming out of that, we had some storyline progression with Moxley and MJF. The obvious thing with Brodie Lee going over and looking really strong in his defeat of Cody. So
Yeah.
a lot of things, a lot of good things coming out of AEW that are going to set up the table for mostly All Out, I would imagine.
Right. So obviously something is going on as we head to All Out. And before we start with NXT Takeover 30, guys can start submitting questions with the hashtag question. We'll do that after the NXT Takeover review, which, there were some really good matches on the night. And also, if you want to donate to the Super Chat party, cut the line. Any dollar amount will help support the channel and get your question asked immediately. So thank you guys for joining us here on this special edition of the War Room. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. So let's get started with NXT TakeOver 30. Finn Balor versus Timothy Thatcher. Two contrasting styles. You have Finn with his little bit of high flying, a little bit of striking, and Timothy Thatcher's submission, catch wrestling. I thought this was a great balance between the two. Great match. Surprise, Finn Balor ended up winning for the second takeover in a row. Overall, though, good match, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. I definitely like the contrast between their two styles. I think whenever you have contrasting styles, it always makes for a really good match. That's why I think some of Brock Lesnar's best matches are against smaller guys, because there's just a natural contrast in chemistry. So typically, in my opinion, whenever you have guys that have similar approaches in the ring, it's usually clunky and kind of boring, and it doesn't make for a good match. But this match was good. I think that Finn Balor going over was, to me, the obvious thing for now. But I'm sure we're going to see a little more out of these two going forward.
Oh, definitely. And Timothy Thatcher, I think, could be a huge star in NXT. Could definitely play a role when he gets to the main roster. I don't know. I don't think top like main eventer, but he could have some really good mid-card feuds. And maybe, depending on what brand he goes on, maybe he gets a main title shot there, but we'll see how that goes. But all right, we got another $5 donation on the Super Chat party, Ralph. Thank you very much to Zolan for his $5 donation. How realistic do you think it is that Roman Reigns joins AEW? Do the rumors hold water? Do you want him to join? Well, here's the thing. We actually did an episode a while back, our latest edition of our second to last edition of the All Elite Wrestling Draft, where we kind of said who we wanted in AEW. And this was after Jericho first said that he wanted Roman Reigns in AEW. I think he would be a great fit in AEW personally. And I think the change of scenery would help him, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No.
Ever. And speaking of these rumors that Dave Meltzer spread that everybody in WWE contacted AEW. All right. Dave is one of the better journalists in professional wrestling, but how the hell can you confirm that?
Well, not only that, but I mean, if anybody contacted AEW, they're doing it to try and get more money out of the WWE.
Yeah.
Isn't that what happened with Randy Orton? Like he contacted AEW and then they were like, oh yeah, okay, we're going to pay you this much more money. So I going back to the question, I think there are certain guys that will just never even get the opportunity to go to AEW because Vince will just pay them however much to do whatever they want. Really, if he has to pay them to sit home, if it means keeping them off of AEW and keeping them away from his competition, I think he'd do that. I think that Roman Reigns is one of those guys. I think that Brock Lesnar is one of those guys. I imagine that AJ Styles would fall into that category. Probably Seth Rollins too.
Daniel Bryan, maybe.
Daniel Bryan, yeah, probably. There's probably, I'd say 5 to 7 guys that Vince would pay however much for, as long as they can afford it, to keep them strictly just to keep them away from AEW.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, let's get back to the review of NXT TakeOver 30. The North American ladder match winner, Damian Priest, which I thought if it wasn't going to be Bronson Reed, it was going to be Damian Priest. And Triple H actually said afterwards that it was definitely going to be Damian Priest, although he did consider Cameron Grimes and Bronson Reed, but knew it was Damian Priest the whole time. Big win for him. Another case of one loss does not mean you're buried. I saw so many people say that Damian Priest was buried because he lost to Finn Balor at TakeOver in your house. He just won the North American Championship.
But there's no shame in losing to Finn Balor. I mean, know. This is a guy that was a great former match. Universal Champion.
Yes.
It was a very good match. Some really cool spots. Bronson Reed diving onto Johnny Gargano was awesome. That was a cool spot.
Some scary ass spots. And of course, I think the one that everybody is excited about was when Velveteen Dream got thrown over the barricade off the ladder. Yep. I think that's a good way to write him off television for a while. Lay low for a while.
Yeah, stay off social media, keep quiet.
Yes. And
eventually the investigation WWE did and Triple H did will leak.
Yes, I'm sure it will. And whatever, the truth will come out whether he is or isn't doing it. Until then, I think social media needs to shut up about it, personally. But that's me. But one thing social media should not be shutting up about is this Adam Cole versus Pat McAfee match. Holy shit. Pat McAfee could go. This was the best match I've ever seen with a non-wrestler. I was trying to think about this in my head. Like Lawrence versus Bam Bam at WrestleMania 11 that we were at. That was a good match. Surprisingly, it was a good match, but you could tell Lawrence Taylor was blown up after that match. I can't even think of another good match with a non-wrestler in there. Like Stephen Amell versus Christopher Daniels at All In was okay, but this was way better than that.
Ronda Rousey was obviously good in her role at WrestleMania against Triple H.
But I mean, she's technically true.
Well, but I don't know what you want to consider her. I mean, that was like her debut, and then she would obviously go on to become a full-time wrestler.
Right.
Well, part-time, full-time, whatever you want to consider that. She was a champion. She was there for quite a while.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to say what to call her, but I'm considering her a wrestler because she did have a run with the WWE outside of that one match. So I'm even like, what other non-wrestlers had even close to a decent match? Like Mr. T and Roddy Piper, that boxing match wasn't good. Their tag team match at the end of WrestleMania 1 was okay.
How about Zeus and Hogan?
Oh my God. Oh, no.
Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler?
Now that was a good feud. I wouldn't say it was a good match. It was a good feud. And that really should have been the way that Pat McAfee and Adam Cole should have gone. But because of social media today, people are like, oh, it's fake. See, in the 80s, Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler had the same exact relationship as Adam Cole and Pat McAfee behind the scenes. But on screen, everyone thought it was real. Everyone thought that they hated each other, that Andy Kaufman was this anti-hick guy, and it worked. You could not do that today. But this was the closest thing you'll ever get to it, in my opinion.
Yep. Well, not only did McAfee follow up his great promo with great in-ring work, but like you said, I definitely thought this was the best match between the two shows. I mean, I thought that this had the most emotional investment. It had me guessing as to what direction they were to go in. And again, I tweeted this out earlier in the week. Triple H and everyone in WWE, they knew what they were doing in this situation. I think a lot of times it's easy to lose faith in WWE because of all the times they've let us down in certain situations.
Yep.
But really here, I think Triple H knew going into this, and he wouldn't have trusted Pat McAfee in this spot if he didn't know that this guy was going to be able to go out there and cut a good promo and go out there and be able to go in the ring. Because, I mean, people could say what they want, but Pat McAfee looked fucking great in this match.
Yeah, he did.
Adam Cole looked fucking great in his part.
Right.
And I thought it was solid all around, and I loved it.
I agree. Absolutely surprised with, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because of how athletic Pat McAfee really is, but to do that spot where Cole pushes him off the turnbuckle, flips, then he jumps with full vertical onto the top rope to do a superplex. There are guys that have been training for years as professional wrestlers that cannot do that.
Shades of Kurt Angle.
Yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. But another $2 donation to the Super Chat Party. Thank you, Harold Romero. He says, I don't watch NXT and feel bad for Keith Lee. Now we're going to get to the main event.
In his sorrow.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are asking about Keith Lee and what does this mean that he lost. Again, one loss doesn't mean you're buried. So I don't want to hear that Keith Lee got buried by Karrion Kross. But before we get to the main event, let's talk about Dakota Kai versus Io Shirai. I thought this was a very good match. I think the storytelling of knowing that Raquel Gonzalez could come in at any moment to interfere in the match, and you thought that Dakota Kai was finally going to get the win here, and that false finish got the NXT crowd invested after that, and the banging of the plexiglass and whatnot. This match was good, but competing with the other 4 matches on this card was really tough. But they were in the conversation last night. They definitely delivered, in my opinion.
Then they definitely delivered, but unfortunately for somebody as a fan of Dakota Kai, I think they're going to transition away from her, and I think we're going to get a heel turn from Rhea Ripley and have her go after the title.
Okay,
that's kind of the way that it seemed like they were foreshadowing a little bit as they closed out the match, and Rhea Ripley was in the backdrop staring at Io Shirai with the title. And that's where Rhea Ripley belongs. This whole thing with Robert Stone and whatever's going on with that. And again, like putting people where they should be. Like when I talked about Chris Jericho being in this Mimosa match, like, okay, that's like a comedy gimmick type thing. Like he's above that. He doesn't need to do things like that. I feel like Rhea Ripley doesn't need to be intertwined in a storyline with this comedic, I don't even know, like a lawyer / manager / microphone pimp, whatever you want to call him.
Right.
Rhea Ripley's above that. But as far as the match itself, definitely delivered. Very good match, solid work from 2 people that those are 2 of my favorite female wrestlers, I think, right now for sure.
In NXT or overall?
I would say overall. I mean, I think NXT has probably, I don't want to say the best women's division, but they have.
It's close.
It's because their top tier women are so good that it pulls the rest of everybody else up.
True. And the fact, it does help that they're there. Like there's no one in the women's division right now missing in NXT. Like the main roster, there's no Charlotte, no Becky, but yet Sasha, Bayley, and Asuka have really carried over there. AEW's really hurt with half their roster missing because they're all international. So, and plus they're not booking it right to begin with, even with what they have. So either way, it's tough. But again, Dakota Kai, Io Shirai, great match. But let's head to the main event, Ralph. Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross does win the NXT Championship. I am not surprised that Karrion Kross won here, especially after we get the promo earlier in the night that Tommaso Ciampa will be returning this Wednesday at NXT. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, Karrion Kross is winning. Karrion Kross is winning because Ciampa's going to come out Wednesday and say he's out for Goldie. And not only that, out for redemption for his Takeover in Your House match against Karrion Kross, which was the last time we even saw Tommaso Ciampa.
Please don't bring up redemption.
No,
Please.
Retribution.
Redemption, retribution, whatever the hell their name is.
They're called Retribution, not Redemption. Retribution.
Well, you see how much I actually care about them.
Yes, I know. But
anyway, the other person you said he's going to come out and call out Karrion Kross here. Unfortunately for Karrion Kross, and I think for NXT, the news is out. He has what seems to be a separated shoulder.
Yep.
Significant injury. So this is unfortunately a lose-lose for NXT. I think a lot of the fans are certainly disappointed that Keith Lee's reign was so short.
Yep.
But this is kind of what I was worried about. You're pushing Karrion Kross strong.
Yep.
Which they've done that all along since he's been on the roster there.
Right.
And it's kind of like they put those 2 guys in a position where you're going to get your fans split on this.
Yep.
I'm sure there are some people that have been fans of Killer Kross from way back when and are happy to see him win. And he deserves it. I mean, he's been busting his ass for years to get to this point, and really being the champion in NXT really it means that, they're trusting you to be the head of the top guy in NXT, and they probably are going to trust you to go up to that main roster soon too.
Yes.
which is going to be interesting because what happens with Keith Lee from here on out?
He goes to the main roster. I think last night was his last match in NXT, unless Karrion Kross is out for a significant amount of time where they need to put the belt back on Keith Lee. But I honestly believe, especially, I think SmackDown really needs Keith Lee more than Raw does, in my opinion. Actually, no, because you got Roman Reigns eventually coming back. So when he comes back, it's hard. I think maybe he is better off on Raw. What do you think? Raw or SmackDown for Keith Lee?
I mean, Raw, you've got it depends on where they're going to put him, right? If they're going to try to push him directly to the top of the card, I mean, the obvious match for me, the match that I want to see most is Keith Lee and Brock Lesnar.
Yep.
We got a little taste of that at the Royal Rumble. I think at enough people that are fans that don't follow NXT but watch Raw and SmackDown still, if there is any more of those left.
Yeah.
I think that they know who Keith Lee is, and he'd be over enough and recognizable enough where you can put him in a feud with a top guy right from the beginning.
Yep.
And he doesn't have to work his way up. That's what I want to see.
Right.
I think that he has the best opportunity to do that and make an immediate impact if he were to go to SmackDown, because he can feud with somebody like The Miz right out of the gate. Somebody like that who's not necessarily like mid card, but upper mid card, if you want to call him that.
Right.
And that could be fine. I think that right now the focal point of Raw is obviously McIntyre and Orton.
Which it should be.
Orton.
Which it should
be.
No,
it should be. But I think that it's hard to separate yourself from what's going on Raw versus what's going to happen on SmackDown. I think Keith Lee would stand out more on SmackDown.
No, I totally agree. So I think NXT TakeOver 30 was a very good show. I think all the matches delivered in their own way. I think with the exception of Finn Balor, I'm not surprised with any of the winners. I think the ladder match was very good. I think Pat McAfee was really, really surprising. And if we had to pick which show was better, you have one that was better for storytelling, AEW Dynamite, which it should have been because it was a television show. The other was good for in-ring action because it was a pay-per-view. So when people comment on social media and on the video chat here and whatever, asking us, well, why are you comparing the two? I get it. They're two different shows. One's a TV show, one's a pay-per-view.
Well, let's be honest. We're comparing the two because unfortunately the playoffs forced AEW to be on Saturday night rather than Wednesday.
That's true.
And that's we typically do NXT review and AEW Dynamite review, but unfortunately we were put in this position.
Right. And that's fine. And I mean, we do episodes Sunday anyway, and it gave us a reason to go live, which
exactly.
And part of that is to interact with you guys. And I feel like you guys definitely take part of it. We do have your questions coming in. All you got to do is put in the hashtag question next to your question. And if you want to cut the line, you could donate to the Super Chat Party. Any dollar amount helps support the channel. I know we just reached 10,000 YouTube subscribers. Thank you very much for that. And I've seen some people ask the question about merch. We are in the designing process for merchandise. So another way to support the channel will be merchandise. Stay tuned on our social media pages at SCPB Podcast. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So now we're going to go to the chat and answer your questions here. Again, hashtag question. And I'm just going to go in the order that they came in here on the live chat. If you want to skip the line again, donate to the Super Chat and you'll get your question asked immediately. So let me start scrolling here and see what we got. Mark Mello. Mark Mello's first question is the mainstream audience ready for MJF to be champion? I say yeah. Because here's the thing. The mainstream audience wants someone that could talk more than they care about wrestling. I mean, think about it. All the big names, all the superstars, What's the one thing that they have in common? They could talk, and the diehard wrestling fans think they can't work. Other than Austin, who could work, but his injury led him to have a much more basic style when he was in his prime.
You're always going to have the division between the hardcore wrestling fan base who is going to say like, oh, the best wrestler in the world. And this was always the debate when we were younger. You'd have like the internet darling or the indie guy, the guy that everybody would be like, he's the best wrestler in the world. It's not even a comparison. You had Rock and Austin. First of all, Rock was awesome in the ring. Austin was still very good in the ring. And you'd have people like most fans of the hardcore fan base would say, RVD's the best wrestler in the world. Okay, you can make a case for both, but there's a difference between best wrestler in the world and top draw.
Right.
So MJF, yeah, I mean, I think that he's very good in the ring, but I think that his strong point and what he's best at is obviously talking.
Right.
You need that personality, you need to be able to go out there and cut promos and be relatable, or you have to be a heel that can really get under the skin to piss people off. So that way, you get people either rooting to see you get your ass kicked, or they just get behind whatever your cause or your mission is. Like with Daniel Bryan, it was easy to get invested with him because of the underdog story. And that's been the case, with all of the top draws in professional wrestling. When you go back and look at it, there's got to be a cause behind it. They got to say the right thing. It usually comes from out of nowhere. You never see it coming, and it just works. And then we'll start watching, and those typically aren't like your hardcore wrestling fans that have been watching forever. It's like, oh, okay, this is the cool thing to get into. Like with Austin, most people watched it until Stone Cold Steve Austin stopped wrestling. Then you had The Rock, but after that, there were so many fans fell off.
Yeah. I mean, when they started falling off, there was that little bit of core WWE that I think now people appreciate more. Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Triple H, Batista, Randy Orton, that there, like if they were just maybe 5 years early in the main event picture, maybe they could have held a little bit of that audience more. But I mean, it's so tough, but today's audience is just so tough with social media that the knee-jerk reaction just makes it very hard for someone to be a superstar in today's world, unfortunately. But let's go to the next question here from Tarab Hader, and I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. His question is, I've seen many talent in Ring of Honor go to WWE. Do you think talent in WWE will do the same for AEW? I think
he has, right?
Well, I mean, we've seen that. Every singles champion in AEW has been affiliated with WWE. Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Cody and Brodie Lee. Lance Archer has been a part of WWE. Trent Beretta. Dustin Rhodes. There's a lot already. I mean, that's one of the common things that people say is, they don't want to see so many WWE guys in AEW. They want to see the young guys. They want to see the indie darlings. They don't want to see WWE 2.0. But you need them because people know them already. And that's what's going to get them drawn in. And then you use the indie darlings to keep them there. It's what WWE should have done with the nostalgia acts. And that's why they can't really keep their audience the way they should be here in 2020. That's the problem. That's it? No thoughts?
No, I agree. I think that and one of the things that you hear people say consistently is, oh, this guy's, but like I'll use like Jim Cornette as an example. They're like, oh, he's been everywhere. He can't hold a job down, blah, 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 right? Most guys in professional wrestling do go to pretty much most wrestling companies. Like Eric Bischoff, as an example. Eric Bischoff was in WCW. Then obviously he got fired. He went back to WCW. He was also in TNA, WWE, and most recently he made an appearance in AEW. That's just the wrestling industry. Guys go from company to company, whether you're a wrestler, backstage guy, producers, commentators. There's only so many big companies out there. So whether it's, your Jim Cornettes or your top guys from yesterday, like your Steve Austins, most of them, I should say very few of them stick with one company. They all go from company to company at some point in their careers. Even Undertaker, most people think, oh, Undertaker only worked for WWE. Well, The Undertaker only worked for WWE.
Right. But Mark Callis was in WCW.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big industry, but it's also small at the same time.
Right. All right, let's see. Another question here. Adrian Sculty. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced this, but maybe I missed it. But any thoughts on Big Swole handicap match at All Out, Ford and Baker? So, yeah, we didn't touch on this during the original AEW Dynamite review just because we wanted to try to keep it as balanced as possible between Dynamite and NXT. And really, there's not much there. I mean, I obviously they're putting Ford in here because probably Britt Baker is not 100%. So it's a way for Big Swole to get a win over Britt Baker without actually pinning her. So Penelope Ford becomes the fall girl. Other than that, I don't see. I mean, it's the only feud in the women's division, and it's one I'm not 100% invested in right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to get into it's not like it's a bad storyline. It's just, you could tell they're not putting as much effort into promoting it, I think.
Right, that's true.
Britt Baker's good.
Yes, Britt Baker's good and Big Swole is good, but
yeah,
I mean, because the women's division just hasn't gotten a lot of focus, it's very, very hard to really get invested in any of their storylines personally. But all right, next question here. Jason Nisley Olio. Again, I apologize. And also it's kind of hard to read the text on my computer, but does this mean the end of Death Triangle with Eddie Kingston uniting Lucha Brothers with Butcher and the Blade? That's a good question because I know there's a few people asking, where is Pac? Where is Pac?
Yeah.
Pac is in the UK. There is a global pandemic happening right now, so he cannot travel to the United States right now. And the question is, when does Pac come back? When that travel ban gets lifted so he can come to the United States. That's the answer. Pac will be back in AEW. If he wasn't, he would have been part of those releases that we had a couple weeks ago with Jimmy Havoc and Sadie Gibbs and B. Priestley. They want Pac back. It's just a matter of getting the world back into a normal life again. And we're getting there, folks. We are getting there. If you want me to throw a random date out there on when Pac is going to be back, November 4th, 2020. Research it, folks. There's a reason behind it. All right. Question, Music Covers 123 fan asks, who do you think Brodie Lee will feud with first as TNT champion?
Dustin? I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing. This is why it's so random to do this before the pay-per-view. This should have been on the pay-per-view.
Cody's hurt.
Unless Cody's hurt. That's the only thing I could think of. Other than that, I have no idea why they did this. This makes no sense, personally. Makes no sense.
The only two logical matches I can think of off the top of my head would be Matt Cardona coming to defend his friend who got him into AEW.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Or his brother.
Yes. Okay. Either one works. All right. We did get a $4.99 donation to the Super Chat party. Thank you very much, Corey MacArthur. Big fan of the podcast again. He says, best podcast. Did I hear right that Karrion Kross has an injury? #supporter. Yeah, he's going in for an MRI. We'll find out either today or tomorrow. Possibly separated shoulder, possibly broken clavicle. I mean, you could see the pictures. Something in his collarbone is definitely not where it's supposed to be. So there's definitely an injury there. I don't know if you saw the picture or not, Ralph, but
I did. It was noticeable during the match. You could definitely tell something was wrong.
Right. And you could tell in the strikes during the match. Like, I wanted this to be, I know I wasn't getting Masaru Suzuki versus Tomohiro Ishii here, but I thought we were going to get pretty close to it as far as the stiffness of it. But Karrion Kross getting hurt definitely hindered that, in my opinion. But again, use the # question to get your questions in here. And I'm trying to scroll to see where back I came in. All right. Sentinel, his question is, do you think Cody could go after the NWA World's title again? With so many NWA wrestlers coming in, it feels like it's only a matter of time before all this shows up. We already said it. Book it, Cody. Or book it, Tony. We want to see Aldis versus Cody. Obviously, it won't be for the TNT Championship anymore, but what do you think? Should we see it?
I'd love to see it. I mean, I think that the most logical way that we were going to see it was Aldis showing up because of the open championship there with the TNT title. So the open challenge, I should say, sorry.
Right.
I think that all this showing up made a lot of sense, especially given the history between these two. But I think right now taking the belt off Cody, it makes it less likely for it to actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. All right. Next question here comes from Shavang Mishra. Again, apologize if I'm butchering these names. Do you guys listen to Jim Cornette's podcast? I find whatever he says about AEW to be true. Do you feel the same? Well, if you follow this podcast, you know that we do, in fact, listen to Jim Cornette. Do we agree with him 100% on his views on AEW? No, but there are some things that do make sense, what he's talking about. He just says them in such an egregious way that people just don't care, say he's out of touch, and feel like, he's just the get off my lawn kind of guy, which he comes out to be. But I think he's right in some cases, especially like, tag rules, promos, storytelling could be a little bit better in some cases. But there's some things that he's just 100% wrong in. I personally think I like Orange Cassidy. He hates Orange Cassidy. I like Kenny Omega. He hates Kenny Omega. It's stuff like that. What do you think, Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of different wrestling podcasts, and I try to get a different perspective. I not only am I going to listen to Jim Cornette's podcast, but I'll listen to whoever's, whether it's anyone from Ryback to, I've listened to Disco Infernos. I've listened to the one with Conrad and Bischoff. Like I just like to hear different perspectives. To see, to gauge the temperature of the wrestling industry. What are people who have been in the industry saying about AEW? What are they saying about NXT? What are they saying about what's going on currently? What are they saying about storylines? All those types of things. I like listening to that stuff because I like to hear different perspectives of it.
Right.
So I do listen to a wide range of podcasts, not just wrestling based ones. I listen to all types of podcasts.
Right.
That's how I help pass the time in my commute to work. So
yeah, exactly.
I do listen to them. And I just like you, I do not agree with 100% of everything that is said on any of those, but you really shouldn't. There shouldn't be this sense of tribalism. You can like Kenny Omega and you can still listen to Jim Cornette. You can like Cody Rhodes and still listen to Ryback's podcast. You can formulate your own thoughts, watch the match. And if you liked it, like it because you liked it, not because you went on a podcast or read a dirt sheet and said, oh, well, Dave Meltzer gave it 3 stars and I thought it was a 5-star match. If you felt something's a 5-star match, to you, it's a 5-star match. That's all that should matter.
Exactly.
Not what somebody else is saying. You shouldn't be really coerced into feeling one way or another. And most importantly, to anybody listening and to all wrestling fans, it's okay to disagree. Like, there doesn't have to be the sense of, oh, well, you criticized the tag match on AEW last night and now you're not a true supporter of AEW. Well, if I'm watching it, and we have a podcast dedicated to it, and I've gone and bought t-shirts or people buy action figures to support it, you're obviously supporting the company. You can criticize things and still support it. I watched I'm going to watch SummerSlam tonight. I thought the Thunderdome was cool. I thought SmackDown sucked. Yeah.
The Thunderdome concept is really awesome. I would make a couple tweaks if it were me, but, I love the Thunderdome. I'm excited for SummerSlam. I'm going to be a part of it in a special way, not the Thunderdome. I don't want to reveal too many details, but I will be a part of it behind the scenes. Very cool. Very excited about that. But a couple questions before we head out here. Let's see. The question here is... so a follow-up to a Cornette podcast. So Z asked, tell me, isn't Cornette right at the state of Jericho's clownish, mediocre acts? Talking about the Mimosa match. Yes, Jericho shouldn't be doing stuff like this at his part of his career, but at the same time, he's at the end of his career, so he's just going to have fun with it. It doesn't tarnish his career that he's doing this stuff with Orange Cassidy. At the end of the day, he's still a Hall of Famer. He's still one of the best ever. What he's doing is putting a guy over, which is what you're supposed to do on your way out. So he's right and he's wrong. He's right because it's below him, but at the same time, he's right, or he's wrong because it's Jericho. It's not going to hurt him, but he's right. It's still a little beneath him.
I disagree. I think it does hurt Chris Jericho.
You think?
I don't think it does either for them. I honestly don't think this is going to do either for Orange Cassidy or for Chris Jericho.
But if it doesn't do anything for Jericho, that doesn't necessarily mean it hurts his prestige and his credibility and his resume.
To me, and this goes back to a matter of opinion. To me, that going into that type of match and having the outcome potentially be Chris Jericho swimming in a vat of orange juice and champagne, to me, diminishes all the work he did to establish his new character, separating himself from Y2J, separating himself from the guy that was in WWE, and kind of diminishes the work he did to bring prestige to the AEW Championship, in my opinion.
Right.
It's okay to do certain things here and there with comedy. I mean, we saw The Rock do it back in the day with the Hurricane. But this just gives more ammunition to the guys like Jim Cornette who are going to criticize him for things like this.
Exactly. So let's see. I think we did get another $5 donation. Corey MacArthur, thank you very much. He says he hates that for Karrion Kross getting injured. I know we're talking about AEW and NXT, but thoughts on Thunderdome? WrestleMania, I wish had it, but SummerSlam, it will be. Like I said, I love it. Here's the thing I would tweak on it. First off, when you're on the hard cam, the fact that everyone's face is the same size as the wrestlers in the ring is very, very distracting. Very distracting. Other than that, it looks awesome. Yeah. It looks better than what the NBA is doing. It looks better than what MLB is doing with cardboard cutouts. It's better than really anything. It's the best with what we can do right now. It's better than the NXT wrestlers slamming on the plexiglass. I just wish that there were fans that were there to actually be invested in it. People going in and deliberately falling asleep during this to make it look bad. Shame on them. Shame on them. But that's also QC problems with WWE that they should have saw that and got that guy out immediately.
Yep.
But it's hard.
There was even a teddy bear mixed in there.
I don't mind the teddy bear. The teddy bear gave more emotion than the freaking guy sleeping. And half the guys there and they're like,
well, I think the main thing that I'm hoping to get out of this, and you know, they're doing the best they can. I mean, yeah, granted it's 2020, but we're not going to have like holograms of people sitting in these seats, and you're never really going to get anything that's truly going to supplement a live feel with audience and fans there. I think that what I want to see them kind of fix a little bit is more so the sound. I want to have more of that real type of interaction between, you know, fans reacting to near falls or when guys hit their finishers, whatever, you know. And yesterday I talked to you about this. Fox ran a special yesterday, the hottest angles of SummerSlam or something like that. And just being able to see the crowd and having been to some of those shows, I mean, it really, really makes you miss the ambiance and the feel of seeing live matches with that type of feel, especially when you have matches that are so important, like Cena and AJ and things like that. You really miss it.
Right. I think I'd
like to see them fix that.
The problem is they got people in there that are just like, they're watching it as if they're watching at home, not watching it as if they're in the arena.
Yeah.
Which is two completely different things. Like you and I know people ask us to do watch alongs. The reason we don't is because we're freaking boring when we watch pay-per-views. And not only that, we also don't watch them live sometimes. So that's part of the reason, but we just sit there and watch. We're not like overexcited, but if you saw us at an actual arena, we go nuts. We're cheering. We play along. It's just hard. It's hard for us. And I don't want to feel fake doing it. But we're going to do two more questions and then head on out. First question here comes from Jason Jones. Who do you think will lose their title at SummerSlam versus Asuka, Sasha Banks or Bayley? I do think one of them do drop it. I think it's going to be Sasha Banks because she's going second.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sasha too, because that kind of goes along the lines of what they've said about her all along, right? She can't defend the title. She wins the title, but then she loses it pretty quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if this starts to, we kind of saw them building the tension between Bayley and Sasha. So there might be some type of shenanigans where one of them ends up costing the other the title. I just hope Asuka walks out with one title.
Right. I think she definitely is walking out with one. I don't know about both, but I wouldn't be surprised about both either.
I hope we get some type of big reveal, because the tagline for SummerSlam is what? You won't see it coming.
You won't see it coming.
So maybe the night ends with the return of the hacker on all the screens.
Yep.
Maybe we get the reveal of who the leader of Retribution is. That now
Retribution. It's
okay.
called Retribution. And actually, that was going to be our last question here from Corey C. Do we find out who leads Retribution tonight? And if so, who is it? I do not think we get the reveal tonight, but here's who I think it should be. I don't know who it's going to be, but who it should be is either Triple H or CM Punk. Because Triple H will represent NXT and all those buried on the main roster out for Retribution and take over Raw and SmackDown. And of course, all those that haven't gotten a chance yet because they are just, they're stuck in NXT and they can't get up, or they don't want to go to the main roster because of this. CM Punk, obviously, we know the reasons. All his hate for Vince McMahon walking out in 2014. We know last year when he snuck into an indie show, he dressed just like those in Retribution. He did tweet about, I know a thing or two about Retribution. I know a thing or two about Retribution. He led the Nexus. A lot of people are comparing Retribution to Nexus. So I think it should be either one of those two, because the person that leads this has to be impactful. And I don't know if anybody there now on the roster can be impactful enough for this to work. If it's anybody else, I think people shit on it and it falls flat.
Well, I just really hope they have a plan, and this isn't one of those things like the hacker where they promote it, and then they pull the plug on it, and we never really get a reveal, or we'll probably get a reveal, but they might not know who they want to put in this position just yet.
Well, I think the hacker was supposed to be Ali, but because there's no crowds, they stopped it.
So they say. I mean, we're never really going to know until they do some type of documentary or something down the road.
Right.
But I definitely think that the Triple H angle could be very cool. I think that having CM Punk back will definitely help draw some more attention. I think that the Thunderdome, what that did was it got, it popped a good number, but ultimately I didn't think SmackDown was very good. I think it was still the same creative and a lot of silly things. And, I'm being critical of the Orange Cassidy thing. I'll be critical of the thing they did with the Fiend in the ambulance. It's just silly.
Right.
So I think having a guy like a CM Punk, that's going to turn a lot of heads. It's going to get some attention for the right reason. And it's something that you can look forward to every week, as opposed to just random people tuning in to see the Thunderdome and then like, oh, that's cool. Okay. And they never watch again.
Right. All right, guys. We thank you for your questions. We thank you for joining us here on this special edition of the War Room, where we reviewed AEW Dynamite, NXT. Thank you for supporting us, Kadrian Webb, Harold Romero, Zolan, and Corey MacArthur, for your donations on the Super Chat. And, of course, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling. We will be back Tuesday night for our next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble, so make sure you hit that bell for notifications, and we'll talk to you all on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.